Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Williams Pulse, the official news podcast for WVU. My name is Truett. Joining me here today is my co-host, Kinsman. And behind the scenes, we have Archer this week. Our guest this week is the Assistant Professor of Business, Miss Himschoot. We're very, very excited to get to the interview. But before we do, how about some news?
All right, Monday we have men's open dorm at 7 o'clock, and Thursday we have women's open dorm at 7 o'clock. Also on Thursday, we have Bob Ross Paint Night in the grill at 7:30 to 9:30. You don't want to miss that. And then for our missions news, if you want to sign up for a preview day, go to williamsbu.edu/preview and sign up there. Our first preview day will be on September 27th.
And back to our interview. How are you doing today, Miss Himschoot?
Doing well.
If y'all do not know Miss Himschoot, she's one of my favorite teachers in the whole world, but I might just be partial because I'm in her class. But she's also the Assistant Professor of Business. So how did you come to the WVU?
So my story has quite a long history, as a matter of fact. My original undergraduate education is in accounting. Interestingly enough, my father told me when I was choosing my degree path to do anything but teach. Anything but education. Well, I chose accounting, and that came from Girls State. I had the privilege of attending Girls State, and I was very, very passionate about being a mother, but I also wanted to be a professional. So I attended Girls State. I heard a accounting individual make a presentation, and I said that's what I want to do, because she spoke about balance in her life, balancing family and her professional life. And so senior year on, that was my goal, was to be an accountant, and so that was my degree path. I did that for 4 years, started my first job in accounting as a corporate controller, worked there for 12 years, transitioned, and then felt God's call in my life to do something different. I wasn't impacting people in the way that I felt like I needed to. And so that prompted me to enter education, because there were things that I didn't learn in my undergraduate degree or undergraduate education that I felt like students needed to learn, and I wanted to make sure that they were prepared. So my passion, I guess, in teaching is one of relevance. I don't want you to ever leave my classroom and feel like it was a waste of your time. So that's kind of how I came here.
So could you briefly describe for us your journey from college, becoming an accountant, and then how that led to your role as a professor?
Sure. I can expand on that a little bit more. So before I graduated, I actually earned my first position as a corporate accountant. It was summer before my senior year. And it was a head accountant position. I was the only accountant for a privately held corporation. So it was very intimidating, because I felt like there were things that I wasn't prepared for. But I did accept the position. I actually stayed with them for 12 years. And interestingly enough, we moved from a privately held corporation to a merger with a publicly held corporation. So I was able to gain a lot of experience in multiple facets of corporate accounting because of that transition that we had. So that was an exciting time for me. Learned a lot during that time period, during those 12 years. Also had 3 children during that time period, which was interesting to balance all of those things, but we managed. And it was during that time that I started to feel that there was something more that I needed to do with my life. So after 12 years in corporate America, which can be very distant and cold, I decided that I wanted to teach. My father at that time had transferred from high school math to teaching college mathematics, and I really enjoyed his experience and what he was doing, talked to him about that process, and I'm like, that's what I want to do next. Well, he said, you have some work to do before you're ready to do that. So I needed to further my education, but I also wanted to gain a spectrum of experience in accounting that went beyond corporate accounting, and so I decided to move into the medical field. So I transitioned at that point for 8 years into healthcare and healthcare accounting. So I had to take additional classes. I had to learn Medicare, Medicaid. I had to learn private insurance. So I did some self-education at that point, and again took classes in medical terminology. I learned coding. It's a whole other language. And I worked in that field for 8 years because I felt like I needed to bring more to the table when it came to sharing experiences with students beyond corporate accounting. So I really enjoyed my time there. I felt more fulfilled. We come from a very elderly population in my community, and so I was able to assist them with their insurance issues. I was able to advocate for them, to allow them to collect on certain claims. So that was fulfilling for me, but it wasn't the end goal. It wasn't what God had in mind for me, but it was a means to my goal. It was the path I was supposed to be on at the time. So even though it wasn't a short stop, I was there for 8 years, it was just a really important time. My children were busy at that time, so I was able to manage the balance of work and family really well in that office, that medical office. So it was a good time for me. I also finished my degree. So working, family, higher education, all at the same time, graduate degrees. So that was an exciting time, busy time, but it's what God had in store, and He made a path for that. So from there, I started applying for positions. I spent 2 years working as a professional tutor at Black River. So I was waiting for a teaching position to open up. And so, you know what? I felt like this was a good way to get some experience. It wasn't necessarily what I had in mind for myself, but I needed to learn a little humility too. And I needed to start at the bottom, and that's what I did. I continued to work at the medical office and also tutor part-time at Black River. And then from there, God opened the door at Williams. I met Miss Parson, and we immediately connected. And so I'm working on my 10th year right now, and that's kind of the journey of how I got here.
Oh my. So not only are you the best teacher in the world, you're a professional juggler.
Well, that's what you do as a mom. That's a mom skill. So I can't claim that to fame. It's pretty much a mom skill, I would say.
That's amazing. And can you briefly describe your personal transition from practicing as an accountant and a business professional to teaching in the classroom?
So I really feel like that I didn't miss out by not starting my teaching career earlier. I feel like especially in the business field, that real world, real life experience is super important to be able to explain and impart to students. This is what it's really going to look like when you get into a profession or a management position. That's where this idea of relevance came into play. And I just feel like God had this in mind from the beginning. And so He allowed me to have the experiences that I had to prepare me for the classroom so that I could impart to students the skills that they needed to be successful. And that's my passion. So I am passionate about student success. I don't measure that success in dollars. That's not what it means. It means that they're in a career that they can be excited about, that they can feel like that they're making a difference, and that the education that they gained at Williams Baptist University gave them what they needed to be successful. And that's my passion. And I feel like all the experiences leading up to today really prepared me for that. And it was in God's plan from day one. I believe that.
Completely switching the subject now, we're going to talk about personal finance. What key advice would you offer college students to put them in the best financial situation after graduation?
So I have the privilege of teaching consumer finance. So Ms. Parson was teaching this class before I started here, and she very reluctantly passed it on to me. And I have had the privilege of teaching it every year since I've been employed here at Williams. And it is one of my favorite classes to teach, aside from accounting, of course, Truett. But consumer finance or personal finance, we call it consumer finance here, I teach it from a biblical perspective because the concepts, the base concepts for not only accounting, but the way that we manage and value money in our lives all stem from biblical truths. There are over 2,000 scriptures in the Bible related to money and how we handle money and how we perceive money. So it just seems appropriate to use the Bible as a guide to teach that class, and that's how I approach it. So I really enjoyed that perspective. I've really enjoyed being able to share my heart with the students. But what I've learned about personal finance in that process is that it's 20% head knowledge and 80% application. So I can't make students behave a certain way after they leave me. I can only give them the tools and then try to give them perspective when it comes to managing their finances. So advice I would give to students, first of all, is recognize that the things that you have We call them assets in accounting. It can be money. It can be your belongings. Those are not yours. They belong to our Heavenly Father, and He has gifted them to us to manage. We're not owners, we're managers. And so we need to develop the skills that we can to be good stewards and good managers of those gifts and those resources. So what I impart to students and what I require in that class is that you start budgeting immediately. So students typically don't have a lot of funds to manage, and they're saying, why do you have us do this? Well, if you can manage well with a little, you'll be gifted with a lot to manage. So I want students to practice their saving, their giving, and responsible management of the rest. So I encourage students to start giving and being generous, even when they have just a little. I have an assignment based on gifts and giving and being generous. That is a biblical truth. And Dave Ramsey, I don't subscribe to all of his truths, but he does have a really accurate description. He said, if you hang on to money too tightly, you make a fist, and a closed hand can't accept anything more. But if you're generous, you have an open hand, and an open hand is more receptive to receiving additional things in your life. So generosity is a key component of personal finance. So giving, saving, and managing the rest. And my personal advice is start now with the little that you have available to you for spending money, no matter where it comes from. Be responsible in the management of it. Live within your means and learn every skill that you can to prepare you for challenging financial decisions when you leave college. That's my best advice. And also to take consumer finance with Ms. Himschoot in the spring semester.
A must do.
Yes, most definitely.
So Ecclesiastes 5:10 warns us of never being satisfied with wealth, and 1 Timothy 6:10 calls the love of money the root of all evil. How can one balance being a good steward of God's resources that He's given us, but also meet our own financial needs?
Okay, that's a really good question. And a lot of people struggle with that. And in fact, we can all acknowledge that we've struggled with that. We want to earn more money, because the money is the means for us to function in the world and to obtain things. Your ultimate goal is to achieve financial freedom. And it will take a while to get there, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But you really want to attain financial freedom in your life. So the accumulation of wealth for the sole purpose of accumulating wealth is a pitfall. You need to accumulate in your life to take care of those who are within your purview of care, number one, and number two, to give generously to those around you. So when you are obtaining assets, money, wealth, those are gifts from the Lord, then it's not about accumulating lots of money. At that point, it's how many people can I help? How many people can I pour into their lives? So the more you make, the more exciting it is to have the opportunity to invest in someone and invest in their future and to share in their lives in some way. Because we're supposed to have assets available to us, say, for retirement. So part of my journey in caring for my children is to make sure that I have saved money in a retirement account or have funds available to take care of me in my retirement years, because I don't need to burden my children with that, right? So it's not that I'm accumulating wealth for the sake of accumulating wealth. I'm accumulating funds so that my children aren't burdened with my care. And I'm also able to bless organizations, my church, others that I meet during the day. I'm able to bless them and give generously. So we do that not to just have more things for ourselves, but to share with others. So it's all about perspective, And again, you just have to use the word, use your resources to remind yourself on the daily basis that you're not an owner of these assets. You're a manager of the gifts that God has given you. And if you can keep that in your mind, it will change everything. So I'll come back to that definition of financial freedom. So as we talk about in our class, financial independence is what you want to strive for first. And that just means that you can pay your bills with the funds earned from your work. All right? You have a limited amount of money that you have available to spend to live your life, and you live within that. So you're not relying on a credit card to buy your groceries. You are budgeting your money and you're living within the boundaries of that paycheck. So that's financial independence. So I married young. My husband and I maintained financial independence very early. Now, we didn't have a lot of money, and we had 3 children, but we still maintained our financial independence, and we budgeted, and we didn't buy things or purchase things that we couldn't afford. And we have instilled those traits in our children as well. But something that comes later is this idea of financial freedom. And that's when money doesn't rule your thoughts. You don't even think about it. When you have funds available, you make sure you take care of your obligations, you take care of those around you, and then the joy comes from giving to others. So that is what you're looking for, is that financial freedom. And there's a peace that's associated with that. And it comes from God because of obedience. And that doesn't mean to say sometimes you don't get your heart messed up in that way, but yeah, if you can achieve that feeling of freedom and peace by being obedient to what God is directing you to do, if He is nudging you to help someone, do it. Do it. And that will provide you financial freedom ultimately. And that's the goal.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and talking with us today. Those are all the questions we have, but we just want to say thank you again for coming by and sharing your vast wisdom. And there's actually some news that Miss Himschoot has to share.
Yes. This year, Christmas Day is the due date. I am becoming a Nana. Woo. So my first grandchild is due on Christmas Day, so we're super excited. My oldest son and his wife are expecting, and it's just a blessing from God. He has truly been so good to us in this area. So yes, I've told my students, you're going to see pictures, you're going to have updates. I'm going to talk about it because I am so excited.
That's awesome. So if you see her around campus, make sure to congratulate her. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you all for listening to the Williams Pulse. The conversation doesn't end here. Come back next week for another great time with us. See y'all next week.
See ya.
Bye.